Everything was going perfectly. She was texting you first. She was laughing at your jokes. She was making plans. You could feel it, that momentum, that pull between two people when something real is starting to build. And then something shifted. Her replies got shorter. The energy cooled. She stopped initiating. And the worst part? You couldn't point to a single moment where it went wrong. There was no argument, no obvious mistake. It just faded. If that's happened to you, once or more than once, I want you to understand something important. It almost certainly wasn't random. There were patterns at work beneath the surface, psychological patterns that most men never learn to recognize because no one ever taught them to. That's what today is about. Not surface-level dating advice, but a real, grounded look at the psychology behind why women lose interest. And more importantly, what you can actually do to stop it.
The attraction decay problem. Let's start with a concept I want you to internalize. Attraction is not a static state. It is a dynamic one. Most men treat attraction like a box you check. You get her number, box checked. She agrees to a date, box checked. She seems interested, box checked. And then they go into maintenance mode, assuming the attraction will sustain itself. It won't. Attraction, particularly in the early and middle stages of a relationship, is driven by emotional stimulation. And emotional stimulation requires novelty, tension, and uncertainty. The moment a man becomes entirely predictable, entirely safe, the brain's reward system begins to disengage. This is not a character flaw in women. It is basic neuroscience. Psychologist Arthur Aaron's research on romantic attraction found that novel, arousing experiences, even ones unrelated to the partner, elevate feelings of attraction toward that partner. The brain, in a state of stimulation, attributes some of that energy to the person it's with. This is called misattribution of arousal, and it tells us something critical. Attraction is less about what you are and more about how you make someone feel in your presence. When a man becomes emotionally flat, predictable in his moods, predictable in his texts, predictable in his plans, the emotional stimulation disappears. And with it, so does the attraction. That's the foundation. Now let's talk about the specific behaviors that accelerate this decay.
The 5 reasons she loses interest. Reason 1. You made her the center of your universe. This is the most common and the most damaging mistake men make. The moment she becomes your primary source of emotional fulfillment, your energy shifts. You become subtly anxious. You overinvest. You start organizing your life around her availability. And she feels it, not because she's reading your mind, but because it shows up in your behavior. You text more than she does. You're always available. You never push back. You agree with everything she says. What this communicates, on a subconscious level, is I don't have enough going on in my life to be selective. And a man who isn't selective doesn't feel like a catch. He feels like a certainty. And certainty, as we've established, is the enemy of attraction. Psychologist Robert Cialdini's principle of scarcity applies directly here. We assign more value to things that are rare or difficult to obtain. A man who is fully, unconditionally available at all times signals low social value. Not because availability itself is wrong, but because it signals a lack of options, purpose, and demand on his time.
Reason 2. You stopped being a challenge. In the early stages, there was uncertainty. She didn't know exactly how you felt. She had to earn your attention a little. That tension was exciting. It triggered the dopamine-driven anticipation loop we discussed. But somewhere along the way, you showed all your cards. You told her exactly how you felt, exactly how much you liked her, exactly where she stood.
before she had emotionally caught up to that level of investment, and the tension collapsed. This doesn't mean you should be emotionally unavailable or play games. It means you should let the relationship breathe. Emotional disclosure should be gradual and reciprocal, matching her investment, not racing ahead of it. Reason 3. You lost your identity. This one is subtle, but powerful. When a man is heavily attracted to a woman, he often begins to unconsciously mirror her preferences. He watches her shows. He picks up her hobbies. He adjusts his opinions to match hers. He's trying to connect, but what he's actually doing is erasing the contrast that made him interesting in the first place. Attraction thrives on differentiation. She was drawn to you, in part, because you were different from her. You had your own world, your own opinions, your own gravitational pull. The moment you absorb her identity, that contrast disappears. You become a reflection, not a person, and nobody is attracted to their own reflection.
Reason 4. You stopped growing. One of the most underrated drivers of sustained attraction is forward momentum. A man who is actively building something, a skill, a business, a body, a vision, has an energy that is fundamentally different from a man who is coasting. Women are not attracted to success as a static achievement. They are attracted to trajectory. The man who is clearly going somewhere is more compelling than the man who has arrived and stopped moving. Because trajectory signals drive, discipline, and future potential, all of which are deeply attractive at a biological and psychological level. When a man stops growing, he stops being interesting to watch, and interest, sustained over time, is the backbone of attraction. Reason 5. Emotional neediness disguised as affection. This is perhaps the most important one to understand because it's the hardest to self-diagnose. Neediness is not always loud. It doesn't always look like jealousy or clinginess. Sometimes it looks like excessive complimenting. Sometimes it looks like always being the one to reach out first. Sometimes it looks like seeking constant reassurance through words, through reactions, through validation. The psychological problem with neediness is what it signals. Your emotional state is dependent on her. When she's warm, you're up. When she's distant, you're anxious. She becomes the regulator of your internal world. And that is an enormous amount of emotional weight to place on another person, particularly one you're still getting to know. Dr. John Gottman's decades of relationship research consistently found that emotional neediness and lack of self-regulation are among the strongest predictors of relational breakdown. A man who cannot self-soothe, who requires external validation to feel stable, creates an environment of emotional labor that, over time, becomes exhausting. The real fix. Now, let's talk about what actually changes this. And I want to be clear, none of this is about tactics. It's about becoming someone different at a foundational level. Fix 1. Reclaim your identity and your purpose. The single most attractive thing a man can do is be genuinely, visibly invested in his own life, not as a performance, but as a reality. That means having goals you are actively working toward. It means having friendships that matter to you. It means having opinions you'll defend. It means waking up with a reason to move that has nothing to do with her. When your life is full, your energy changes. You stop needing her attention to feel okay. You stop calculating her responses. You show up to interactions with her from a place of abundance rather than scarcity. And that shift from needing her to choosing her is felt immediately. Fix 2. Regulate your emotional investment. Match her energy, not your anxiety. If she's initiating twice a week, you initiate twice a week. If she's putting in medium effort, you put in medium effort. This is not game playing. It is calibration.
It ensures you are building something mutually, rather than one person dragging the other forward. And critically, when she pulls back, as women often do, as a natural test of your stability, do not panic. Do not send 5 texts to figure out what's wrong. Do not catastrophize. Hold your ground. Stay in your life. Let the silence exist without rushing to fill it. A man who doesn't destabilize when she goes quiet communicates one thing: I am secure in myself, regardless of what you do. That is the most attractive posture a man can hold. Fix 3. Reintroduce tension deliberately. Tension in a relationship is not a problem to be solved. It is a feature to be managed. Have opinions. Disagree with her sometimes. Challenge her ideas respectfully. Make plans without consulting her first. Have evenings she's not part of. Be someone whose next move she can't always predict. None of this is about being difficult. It's about being 3-dimensional. A man with edges, with a clear sense of who he is and what he stands for, is inherently more compelling than a man who has sanded himself smooth to avoid conflict. Fix 4. Keep growing. Always. Make this non-negotiable. You are always in forward motion.
A new skill, a physical discipline, a creative project, a professional climb. It does not matter what it is. What matters is that you are someone who is building. Because a man in motion is a man worth watching. And a man worth watching is a man she doesn't want to lose. The deeper truth. Here's what all of this really comes down to. Women don't lose interest in men. They lose interest in versions of men. They lose interest in the version that disappeared into the relationship, the version that stopped having a life, the version that needed her approval to feel whole, the version that became so available, so agreeable, so eager, that the man underneath all of that became invisible. The fix is not a dating strategy. It is a self-development strategy. It is the ongoing disciplined work of becoming a man who is so grounded in his own identity, so genuinely engaged with his own purpose, that attraction becomes a natural byproduct of who he is, not a performance he has to maintain. That man does not chase. He does not beg. He does not monitor her interest levels like a stock price. He simply builds. He stays in motion. He shows up as himself, fully, and he trusts that the right woman will recognize that and stay. So let's bring it home.
Attraction decays when a man stops being the person she was attracted to in the first place. It decays when he loses his identity in the relationship, when he overinvests before she's earned it, when he becomes emotionally dependent, and when he stops growing. The solution is not a new set of moves. It is a deeper relationship with yourself, your purpose, your discipline, your emotional stability. Because here's the truth that no one tells you. The most effective thing you can do for your dating life is to become genuinely worth staying for, not through performance, through substance. And that work, the real work of becoming that man, starts the moment you stop looking for shortcuts and start building something real. If this hit home for you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want to go deeper on confidence, identity, and what it actually takes to become more attractive from the inside out, subscribe. We go further every week. See you in the next one.